In order to make this little cowl for our Barbie dolls, you need a small amount of medium or chunky weight yarn. This is a size 4 or a size 5 if you're reading the yarn label. You need a miniature loom. If you don't already have one, there's a link in the description box down below to our tutorial on how to make one for yourself. You need a yarn needle, a loom hook, and a pair of scissors. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. You want to begin with a slip knot. Put that on any one of your little prongs. Take the little tail and put it down the middle of your loom so that you can sort of see it out the bottom. Then you want to begin wrapping. We are going to wrap in a counterclockwise method by going around behind the pegs one at a time. Try to keep it sort of loose, but not so loose that it wants to come up and off of your loom. And once you've gone all the way around once, go all the way around again. Once you've gone all the way around twice and you have loops, 2 loops on each of your pegs, we're going to begin knitting by working in a clockwise fashion. So you're going to take off the first loop on your first peg. It might help to keep your finger on the upper loop, pull it up and over top and off your peg. Using the small loom is a little easier than some of the big looms because you can hold it in one hand and keep a finger on those loops to make sure they don't come flying off the top of your pegs. Try not to pull too tightly. You don't want to make these very tight stitches. And just carefully work your way all the way around. Once you've knit every single stitch around your entire loom, it's time to wrap your yarn again. So you're going to begin by wrapping around the peg, going around and behind each peg in a counterclockwise method. And once you've got a new loop on every single one of your pegs, remember, try not to pull it too tightly. You want to have nice semi-loose loops so that you have nice, comfortable looking, not tight stitches. Make sure every single one of your pegs has a second loop on it, and then you can start knitting all over again. Keep your finger on that other loop just so it doesn't come off the top of your peg. And you're going to continue wrapping your yarn in a counterclockwise direction and knitting off your loops in a clockwise direction until you've done 6 rows of loom knitting. Once you've knitted approximately 6 rows, it's time to cast off. Now, instead of wrapping our yarn again around each peg all the way around our loom in a counterclockwise method, we're going to knit each stitch as we need to in a clockwise direction. So take your yarn and wrap it around the post of your first stitch. It helps to keep a finger on that yarn so that you have a little control over it, and knit that first stitch up and over top of the yarn. You're going to do the same thing to this post right next to it, again in the clockwise direction. So bring your yarn around the front of that peg and knit that stitch off. Now you can pull up on the loop you just made, pick it up and pull it off of that peg, put it back on the peg of the stitch you knit just before that, and now we're going to knit both of these stitches off together. So you can bring your yarn around the front of your peg, it doesn't matter from which direction you bring it, and then you want to bring both of these loops up and over top of that yarn, and you can do them together or one at a time, whatever's easiest for you. Sometimes when we're working this small, you want to do them one at a time. Now you want to pull up on this loop, and if it helps to use your hook, you can do that too. Pick it up and off of that peg, bring it in a clockwise direction to the peg next to it, and now we're going to repeat. This stitch has already been knit. We need to knit the stitch next to it, So bring your yarn around front of the post in a clockwise direction and knit that stitch. Pull that stitch up and off the post. Put it on the post I should say, just before it, and we're going to knit both of these as well. Pull up on that stitch, pull it off of that post, bring it in a clockwise direction to the next post. That stitch is already knit. We are going to knit the next one in a clockwise direction. And if it sometimes helps to loosen up your little loops by plucking them from the top down, you can do that too. Pull it up and over top of that yarn, pull up on that loop, bring it backwards to the previous stitch, and knit both of these off. Bring your yarn around the front of your post and knit both of those stitches either together or one at a time. Do your best not to split your yarn. I know it's a little tricky when you're working this small. Pull up on that loop, bring it clockwise to the next peg, and continue. You're going to knit the next stitch, bring it back, knit both off, move this one forward, knit the next stitch, bring it back, knit both off, bring this one forward, all the way around until you're down to a single stitch. Knit off your last 2 loops. And now you're down to 1. You can pull up on that loop, pull the whole thing off of your loom, snip your yarn, and you can knot off. Take your yarn, pull it through that loop, and pull it nice and tight. It goes without saying that you want to try and be loose with your stitches and your wrapping all the way around so that you can make sure that you don't have a tight edge. One side will be a little looser than the other, so you want to try and be as even with your stitches as possible. You can turn the whole thing inside out so that you're looking at the wrong side of your cowl. You can take your yarn needle and you can gradually weave in each of your ends by scooping up the underside of the stitches from a row just below where your fastened off yarn is. And since this is just going on our Barbie, it doesn't have to be woven in with too much consideration, because it's probably not going to unravel. You can trim whatever you don't need. Make sure you do the other side too. Turn it right side out again, and you're all done. One cute little cowl, perfect for your Barbie doll.